Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic most people think they've got figured out. Semaglutide. It is Ozempic, Wegovy,
Yeah.
these drugs
It's
that are just, well, everywhere for weight loss.
right. They're absolutely dominating the headlines.
But this deep dive, it's not really about the numbers on a scale. We're looking at something quite different, a perspective that might just shift how you think about hunger itself.
Absolutely. As we gathered our sources, we kept circling back to the work of Dan Hollis. His whole argument is that the usual way we talk about fat, calories, discipline, carbs, it's just incomplete.
Complete how?
Well, he suggests it's tied to something much deeper, something most people don't really want to talk about because, frankly, it doesn't fit the simple narratives we're usually sold.
Yeah, let's unpack that. Hollis talks about decoding emotional amnesia. That phrase really stood out,
It does. And notice he's not focusing on control. He talks about intentional surrender.
which sounds counterintuitive for weight loss,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. And here's the core idea that grabbed us. He says, semaglutide gives you silence, and silence gives you truth.
Wow. Okay, silence gives you truth.
And get this. He argues that when people regain weight, it's not just about physical hunger returning. He says they relapse into confusion.
Confusion. Okay, so this flips the script.
Hmm.
It poses this question, right? What if you aren't actually broken? What if you're just confused?
Exactly. His whole framework challenges that idea that it's all down to willpower. He's offering maybe a shortcut to understanding something much deeper about why we eat, about well-being.
It's not just what you eat, but the why.
Precisely.
So if we're talking emotional amnesia, what are we saying hunger is then?
Right.
Because normally it's just, stomach growling, low blood sugar, physical stuff.
Yeah, the standard view.
Mhm.
But Hollis sees it as much more layered. He actually reframes emotional hunger. He says it sounds like a craving, but it's actually a question, a need asking to be seen.
A question.
Uh.
Okay, so that urge for, I don't know, chocolate or chips
Huh?
might not be about the food itself.
It might not be. It could be a signal for something else entirely. Loneliness, maybe? Boredom? Stress? Even positive emotions sometimes trigger it. Food becomes like a stand-in.
Okay, and that's where semaglutide comes in, but not as the magic bullet fix.
Right. Biologically, sure, we know what it is. Ozempic, Wegovy, it's a GLP-1 receptor agonist.
Which basically means it mimics a hormone, GLP-1, that your body already makes.
Exactly. And that hormone does a few things. Helps regulate appetite, slows digestion slightly, tells your brain you're feeling full.
Originally for type 2 diabetes, but then they saw the weight loss effect because of that satiety signal.
Correct. But Hollis looks beyond that mechanism. He sees it as a tool. A powerful one, yes, but not the entire answer.
He talks about its real function being that it gives you a moment where food stops talking. That's a really
Yeah.
evocative phrase.
Isn't it? He says, for some people, that's the first honest moment they've had in 20 years. He calls it a window or a biological pause.
A pause. Okay. And in that quiet, that's when you can finally ask, okay, wait, what am I really hungry for?
That's the opportunity he highlights. It's a massive distinction from just appetite suppression.
But that's silence. I can see how that could be, well, kind of terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. If food has always been your go-to, your, as Hollis calls it, emotional scaffolding.
Your comfort, your stress relief.
Yeah. And suddenly it's quieter. That automatic urge isn't shouting anymore. It can leave you feeling really exposed.
He says silence scares the hell out of most folks. Makes them feel like they lost their favorite lie. That's pretty blunt.
It is blunt because often that crutch is gone and you're left with the raw feeling underneath, which leads right into why people sometimes struggle even when the drug is working.
Right. It's not that the drug failed.
No. Hollis is adamant. People struggle because no one taught them what to do with the quiet.
And so they fall back on,
Yeah.
old habits.
Pretty much. The old patterns. He uses the phrase cheese puffs, cheat days, chaos. It's the familiar territory when the quiet feels too uncomfortable.
Which connects back to his point about willpower, doesn't it?
Directly. And he says very clearly, willpower was never the problem. You're often fighting your own biology, these deep emotional grooves and learned habits. The silence just makes that clear.
So, okay. Semaglutide creates this quiet space, this time. What's the plan? What do you do in that space, according to Hollis?
This is where his framework really comes into play. He talks about building something he calls inner architecture.
Inner architecture.
Yeah, he describes it as putting up scaffolding in the space semaglutide opens. And the scaffolding is built, he says, on 4 key things: framework, identity, ritual, language.
Framework, identity, ritual, language. Can we break those down a bit?
Sure. So the framework is like the new understanding of what's actually going on. Identity is about shifting how you see yourself beyond just your eating habits.
Okay.
Rituals are the consistent small actions you put in place. And language is about how you interpret those internal signals, those cravings. It's about learning to separate what he calls signal confusion.
Signal confusion, meaning figuring out if that urge is really hunger or something else entirely.
Exactly. He teaches people to observe the craving, not obey it. To decode it, ask, what does this really mean? It's less about suppressing the feeling and more about understanding it deeply.
So that inner architecture isn't just a diet plan, it's foundational mental and emotional work.
Very much so. And he sees the gift of semaglutide as the time it provides. Time to reflect, reset, rewire.
He has that great line, "Semaglutide isn't the solution to emotional eating. It's the silence that lets you find one."
That really captures it, doesn't it? It's about using that pause productively.
And he links this all back to identity, too. He talks about identity disconnection.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. He argues you don't hold on to weight loss with discipline, you hold on to it with alignment.
Alignment, meaning aligned with who you actually are or want to be.
Precisely. It's about changing the underlying story you tell yourself, replacing the story, not just the snack. That's the deep work, the inner architecture. And he says you don't brand that stuff, you listen to it.
Okay, this sounds like really significant work. But what about, the practical side, the long game? Because, like you said, semaglutide is not forever. People eventually stop taking it.
That's such a crucial point, and one that often gets missed in the hype. Hollis really stresses that the real work begins after the medication, or at least needs to be well underway.
Because otherwise...
Otherwise, he warns, when people stop taking it without a plan, the old patterns come back. The appetite naturally returns. Those old triggers are still there.
And if you haven't built that inner architecture...
You're back where you started, potentially. So the focus has got to be on building habits and understanding that can live beyond the injections, things that are sustainable.
And he also addresses the pace of weight loss, right? The concern about losing too quickly, he calls it metabolic pacing.
Yes, exactly. Losing weight very rapidly isn't always ideal. It can sometimes slow down your metabolism long term, and you can lose quite a bit of muscle mass along with fat.
Which isn't good for metabolic health overall.
Not at all. So Hollis advocates for pacing. It's about timing your nutrition, your habits, your progress in a way your body can actually handle and sustain. It's not a race.
It's building something lasting, not just getting a quick result.
Mm-hmm.
And woven through all of this is this theme of, compassion, really. He says, there is no shame here, only process.
That empathy is central to his approach. He constantly reinforces, you are not broken, not lazy, not undisciplined.
Which is so different from the usual messaging around weight.
Totally different. He frames it as you're working against biology you weren't taught about in a culture that, let's be honest, often profits from keeping people confused. His goal is to help reset both the body and the self-blame.
It's interesting he calls his whole approach a conversation, not a prescription.
Yeah, that really highlights the relational aspect. It's about your relationship with food, with your body, but also with guides or support systems. He emphasizes needing a map, a guide, and a community. You don't do this deep work alone.
Right. It's not just about getting a pill.
Definitely not. And that leads to this really hopeful message he gives people. He says, you're not starting over. You're starting right.
Starting right.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning this time with the right tools, the right understanding.
Exactly. With tools that actually work with your body and brain, not against them. Starting with alignment and support instead of shame.
So the invitation here is really to do that deeper work. It's not just about shedding pounds. It's about fundamentally reclaiming your relationship with food, your body, and yourself.
That's the heart of it. So if you're using semaglutide or even just thinking about it, the big takeaway from Hollis's perspective is pay attention to that window, that miracle pause.
Don't just let it pass by. Use that quiet.
Use the quiet. Ask yourself, really ask, what am I truly hungry for? Now that the food noise is turned down, what else is making itself known? What needs support?
What needs support now that food isn't filling that gap?
Mm-hmm. And remember his final wisdom on this. Healing emotional hunger takes empathy, not judgment. Awareness, not rules. And curiosity, not punishment.
It really does circle back to that initial idea. When the cravings stop.
The truth begins.